Hello.
Hola.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Kit.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jake.
And together...
And we clearly didn't rehearse this intro.
Not at all. Not at all, because we've all done it, so I just assumed everybody would know what to do.
That's fair.
Together, we are functionally literate, and today we are doing the 2nd anniversary episode.
Yahoo!
It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years. Longer if you count all those junk episodes we didn't actually...
I don't count those. Those don't exist.
What junk episodes?
I recorded
I don't know about the junk episodes.
I recorded a bunch of episodes with my friend Alex, but we never finished a book because he had stage fright. And so his anxiety, he just couldn't do it. And I never put any of those episodes out. And then I started recording with Zach. The episodes I recorded with Zach, all of those, as I think, came out.
I think so.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that
a
while ago when we were recording.
So today we are gonna just talk about the podcast and talk about what we've done so far, talk about what we want to do in the future, and also I have an activity today. So the question is, do we just want to chat or do we want to do the activity first?
Why did both of you look at me to make the decision?
I don't know.
This is a thing that I've noticed men do, is that we defer to the woman for the decision. And then the woman says, no, don't do that.
Right.
Make the decision. And then we'll go, okay. And then, this is like that pick where to eat thing where we go, okay, we'll go here. And then the girl goes,
Okay, men, what do you want to do?
I like structure. So let's do the activity first.
Activity.
I remember you telling me what the activity was 2 days ago. So I didn't really have much time to prepare for the activity.
Well, you don't need to do a ton. You just need to have a couple books at least.
They told you the activity?
You guys knew the activity?
I told Jake, hey, I have an idea for an activity. Get some books. I didn't tell him what the activity was.
All right.
Okay.
So,
very good.
You all and I brought books today.
Yes.
So a few weeks ago, maybe even a week and a half ago, I saw this thing online that I thought was pretty novel. The idea is when you want to determine if a book that you have is something you actually want to read, flip to the 99th page and read that, and then determine if you want to read this book based on that. The logic is that when you're 99 pages in, you're in the meat of the book. And so whatever's going on that page, the rest of the book is probably going to be kind of like that.
Unless it's a Russian novel. In which case, by page 99, you're still in exposition.
Really?
And also, everybody
or
is
some Charles
depressed.
Dickens. Yeah, well, that's page 1. We start with, so life sucks, right? We all know that.
We all know.
Common ground.
Charles Dickens, page 99, it's capitalism is still a sham.
Yes.
So the activity today is we're going to all do kind of a round robin thing until we have no more books. We're going to tell each other the title of the book, who it's written by, and then we're going to read the 99th page, and we're not going to say anything else about the book. And then the rest of us have to decide if we would read that book or not.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I do want to say...
This is literally my nightmare. This is...
Stand up and read in front of the class.
No.
Literally. This is like, here, dyslexic boy, read aloud.
So I was thinking of that. I was aware of that. Jake, if you don't want to do that, you can just take a screenshot and send it to one of us, and we'll read it. I'm not going to make a dyslexic man read.
Okay, that is good. Someone else can, whoever the best reader is, can read for me, because otherwise we'll be here all day, and it will be a nightmare in editing.
I do want to say that all of my books that I brought are black and red, except one. And this is a little challenge for the audience at home. Guess which one is the cowboy smut?
Okay. Well, what's the other one? No. What colors are it?
They're all the other one is blue and yellow.
Thank you. Okay.
So you've got what is that? 6 books?
I can't see anything, by the way.
Yeah, you're gonna have to send a picture to Jake.
So I'm blind. I tried to log into Discord, but it hasn't gone well.
That's okay. Kit, you should go first.
I mean, I feel like you have 6 books. it makes sense, I think, for you to go first.
Okay, let me find page 99 in the first one.
What's the book?
This book is called A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson.
That's the cowboy smut.
That is.
Okay. Ah, but I'm sure your wealth attracts all manner of little birds hoping to fritter away a piece of it in their nests. You must receive suitors by the boatful. Indeed, she said with a laugh, and I entertain every one. I hear their love poems and their declarations. I accept their gifts, and I grant them a private audience, but that's as far as it will ever go. Not that they know that, of course. They sincerely believe they have a chance, poor boys. You hummed your approval, dark eyes shining in the firelight. And if they have hope, they continue to behave themselves and allow you your little indulgences and eccentricities. Very clever, Magdalena. A third of the men in this court want to bed me and wed me. Another third despise me but won't speak against me because I've carefully collected records of their affairs and murders and misdeeds. And the other third simper and fawn because they know where the true power lies, and they wish to ingratiate themselves with it. And the women? Ah, she said, her voice almost a purr. She broke eye contact with you and shot me a smirk. Women are another matter entirely. Her fingers brushed against my leg under the table, equal parts bold and tentative. I squeezed her hand in mine, unable to decide whether I wanted to cast her off or pull her closer.
I don't know if that's cowboy smut, but it feels smutty.
I'm getting the feeling that this is 6 smut books. They're just
And only one of them is cowboy.
Yeah. All of them are generic smut, and then one is just very genre specific smut.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear anything about rough hands
No.
or chaps, so
No.
I'm going to say it's probably not the cowboy one.
All right.
I read it at the beginning of 2024, and it was probably my favorite book of 2024. It's really good.
What was the book called again?
A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson.
This feels like a vampire thing.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I'm thinking either vampirism or like cloak and dagger, kind of Victorian or Elizabethan politics type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Zach, would you read it?
or maybe both. Would I read it? Oh, I might need one more page. Because the thing is, I'm not against smut, but I don't want to read something that is just smut. Like
Right.
if there's also some kind of cool adventure or some narrative plot outside of the like
Yeah.
overt sex scenes, I'm fine with reading that.
I can get on board with that idea.
But if it's just like we're gonna go sex scene to sex scene, it's like I wouldn't want to read that.
Jake, you're on board with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Straight smut is just...
Well, I
I
promise
don't
it's
know, I
not.
don't really have an opinion on
No,
straight smut. I'm not gonna...
You can't weigh in. You can't weigh in.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's not just smut.
No,
That's
you weighed
good.
in.
Yeah.
That's weighing in.
I think so. The answer is yes or no, not maybe. I want to say maybe. I'm gonna say no, not that one.
I don't think I would read it based on that one page. I'd read the fucking blurb first. You know, that would be...
Yeah,
I wouldn't just
that's the
jump
thing
to...
is,
It's like title, cover, blurb, page 99. I think that's the order this should
You know,
be
I
done
think
in.
that's fair.
No.
What's the blurb of the book?
Saved from the brink of death
Cowboy smut. Just...
it's just 2 words on the back in bold.
Saved from the brink of death by a mysterious stranger, Constanta is transformed from a medieval peasant into a bride fit for an undying king. But when Dracula draws a cunning aristocrat and a starving artist into his web of passion and deceit, Constanta realizes that her beloved is capable of terrible things. Finding comfort in the arms of her rival consorts, she begins to unravel their husband's dark secrets. With the lives of everyone she loves on the line, Constanta will have to choose between her own freedom and her love for her husband. But bonds forged by blood can be broken only by death.
Okay, so it is a vampire thing.
Yeah. See, now I would definitely read
it's-
that.
All right, I'd read that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's smutty vampire politics. That's
Yeah.
what that
I was
sounds
going to
like.
say, with just
Yeah.
page 99, if I had to ignore like Kit's other information, I would say probably not. But because she was like, no, it's the best thing I read all year. It's okay. Well, I got to give that a shot, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But yeah, now that I'm like, oh, Dracula, I fucking love Dracula. Yeah, I would read that.
I feel like the books that I've brought are very much not in alignment with anything you guys will have brought.
Not so. Zach brought nonfiction.
Yeah, I brought.
Oh, nice.
I brought two nonfiction
cool.
books.
Ooh, I also brought 2 nonfiction books, and then
Alright.
one that's kind of like in the middle. It's fiction, but
In
it's
the
like,
middle, historical
weird.
fiction, I guess, or
it's
satirical
kind of like
fiction.
an opinion piece and an essay formed as like a story,
Interesting.
like a conversation between fictional characters.
Okay,
Ah,
so do
it's
one
very
of you
interesting.
two want to go next, or shall I go next?
I could go next if you want.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you got?
Yeah,
So
go
this
on.
first one is 1491 Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus by Charles C. Mann. And this is the 2nd edition.
Okay. What's the blurb?
The blurb. Charles C. Mann's groundbreaking work of science, history, and archaeology, now expanded and updated in this new edition, radically alters our understanding of the Americas before the arrival of Columbus in 1492. Contrary to what so many Americans learn in school, Columbus did not land on a sparsely settled, near-pristine wilderness. Recent research has shown that Indians arrived millennia earlier than previously thought and shaped the lands around them in ways that we are only now beginning to understand. The astonishing Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, sure I said that wrong, had running water and immaculately clean streets and was larger than any contemporary European city. Native cultures created corn in a specialized breeding process that has been called man's first feat of genetic engineering. Perhaps most surprising, many researchers believe that past Indian cultures created much of today's Amazon forest. This is a transformative new look at a rich and fascinating world we only thought we knew.
Cool. What's 99?
All right, page 99. If you don't like nonfiction, this is going to feel dry. If not technology or the horse, what defeated the Inca? As I said, some of the blame should be heaped on the overly centralized Inca command structure, a problem that has plagued armies throughout time. But another much larger part of the answer was first stated firmly by Henry Dobbins. During his extracurricular reading about Peru, he came across a passage by Pedro Ciez de Leon, the Spanish traveler, who observed 3 roads between the same 2 cities. Entranced by the first exhibition of Inca booty in Spain, Cieza de Leon had crossed the Atlantic as a teenager and spent 15 years in Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Colombia, traveling, fighting, and taking notes for what would become a massive 3-volume survey of the region. Only the first part was printed in his lifetime, but the 20th century historians had found and published most of the rest. Dobbins learned something from Cieza de Leon that was not mentioned in Prescott's history, in the Smithsonian's official handbook of South American Indians, or in any of the then standard descriptions of Tawantinsuyu. According to Cieza de Leon, Huayna Capac, Atahualpa's father, died when, quote, a great plague of smallpox broke out in either 1524 or 1525, so severe that more than 200,000 died of it, for it spread to all parts of the kingdom, end quote. Smallpox not only killed Huayna Capac, but it killed his son and designated heir, and his brother, uncle, and sister wife. The main generals and much of the officer corps died, wrote the Inca chronicler Santa Cruz Pachucuti Yamki Salcamayhua. Man, these names are tough. Quote, all their faces covered with scabs, end quote. So did the 2 regents left in Cusco by Huayna Capac to administer the empire. After the dying, Huayna Capac locked himself away so that nobody could see his pustulous face. Salcamayha reported he was visited by a terrifying midnight vision. Surrounding him in his dream were millions upon millions of men. The Inca asked who they were. Souls of the lost, the multitude told him. All of them would die from the pestilence, each and every one. The story is probably apocryphal, but its import isn't. Smallpox has an incubation period of about 12 days, during which time sufferers, who may not know they are sick, can infect anyone they meet. With its fine roads and great population movements, Tawantinsuyu was perfectly positioned for a major epidemic. Smallpox radiated throughout the empire like ink spreading through tissue paper.
That was all page 99.
That was page 99.
Oh my gosh, it felt forever.
That is a long page.
You were right. That
how
was
big
dry.
is this print?
It's not real big. But it's over 400, it's like 520 pages. So
Okay.
it's a long book.
I'm just gonna step in and just say I probably wouldn't read that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think that's for me.
Kit, would you read that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in history, though, so I'm a big history nerd, and I just finished a graduate degree, and I'm attempting to start another, so I would read that.
I would add it to my read list, but it would probably get deprioritized quickly.
It'd be like the 5th item on the reading list.
It'd definitely be one you're like, I'm gonna get to
that.
that.
I will.
I will
get
read
it.
that. I can see how it has a lot more interest for people that live in the Americas, just because that's still a relevant sort of topic, both in history and politics and all that stuff. But yeah,
I get you.
I would make a case that page 99 was probably not the greatest representation of the interesting things that are in it.
Nah. I wonder if this test really only works for fiction, but I don't know.
It might. So one of the things
wonder.
that the blurb on the back had alluded to was that the Amazon rainforest is an anomaly of ecology, which as a plant guy is super interesting for me. But nowhere else in the world is there such a high percentage of biodiversity that is all usable in some way to humans. And it's like over 90% of all the plants in the Amazon rainforest have some sort of human use, whether it's food, structure, fuel source, something like that. That happens nowhere else in the world.
I have wondered about that. It does explain why we find so many useful plants there.
Yeah, it's crazy. But then there's also like geology stuff and meteorology stuff. It's like it would have been almost impossible for a rainforest to establish here on its own.
So mine doesn't actually have a blurb.
I thought you were going to say it doesn't have a
mine-
99th page.
That's fair. I mean, it nearly doesn't.
Oh, we're getting
Oh.
conclusion. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's not fiction. It has 119 pages. So it's George Orwell's Why I Write, which is a collection of essays.
All right. If you want to send me a picture, I'll read the page for you.
Yeah, you might want to start on the just the end of page 98.
I will
because
not.
It gives a bit more context. Okay, fine.
We will
Fine.
start with the first complete sentence on page 99.
No, I'm going to start at whatever's at the top of page 99.
Jeez. Okay.
He's committed to the bit.
Yeah, he is committed to the bit. So, by the way, this is for an essay. It's called A Hanging.
So this is going to be partway through a sentence. For help.
Yep.
But steady, rhythmical, almost like the tolling of a bell. The dog answered the sound with a whine. The hangman, still standing on the gallows, produced a small cotton bag, like a flour bag, and drew it down over the prisoner's face. But the sound, muffled by the cloth, still persisted over and over again. Ram! 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 The hangman climbed down and stood ready, holding the lever. Minutes seemed to pass. The steady, muffled crying from the prisoner went on and on. Ram! 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 Never faltering for an instant. The superintendent, his head on his chest, was slowly poking the ground with his stick. Perhaps he was counting the cries, allowing the prisoner a fixed number. 50, perhaps, or 100. Everyone had changed color. The Indians had gone gray like bad coffee, and 1 or 2 of the bayonets were wavering. We looked at the lashed, hooded man on the drop and listened to his cries. Each cry another second of his life. The same thought was in all our minds. Oh, kill him quickly, get it over, stop that abominable noise. Suddenly, the superintendent made up his mind. Throwing up his head, he made a swift motion with his stick. "Jello!" he shouted almost fiercely. There was a clanking noise, and then dead silence. The prisoner had vanished, and the rope was twisting on itself. I let go of the dog, and it galloped immediately to the back of the gallows. But when it got there, it stopped short, barked, and then retreated into a corner of the yard, where it stood among the weeds, looking timorously out at us. We went round the gallows to... That's the end of the page. So, would you turn the page?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I would. Yeah.
Yeah, I would read that
really
book.
Good.
I'd read that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so it's actually like an account of when George Orwell was working in a prison. So this is like a real thing that he experienced.
Oh gosh.
Jeez.
I know. Yeah. Which is and it's so good. It's like one of the best kind of like short stories in any of these, like, because a lot of the books that I read are kind of like short collections of different stories and essays and stuff. It's one of the best ones that I've read by quite a large margin.
Okay. All right. So my
Yeah.
turn. My first book is Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. It doesn't have a blurb, but that's okay. I feel like it speaks for itself.
I think we all know Grimm's fairy tales.
Right.
Most of us, anyway.
So, fortunately, page 99 of Grimm's Fairy Tales is a complete story.
Oh.
It's called Herr
Oh, nice.
Corbus. There were once a cock and a hen who wanted to take a journey together. So the cock built a beautiful carriage which had 4 red wheels and harnessed 4 mice to it. The hen seated herself in it with the cock, and they drove away together. Not long afterwards, they met a cat who said, "Where are you going?" The cock replied, "We are going to the house of Herr Corbus." "Take me with you," said the cat. The cock answered, "Most willingly, get up behind, let you fall off in front. Take great care not to dirty my little red wheels. And you little wheels roll on, and you little mice pipe out, as we go forth on our way to the house of Herr Corbus." After this came a millstone, then an egg, then a duck, then a pin, and at last a needle, who all seated themselves in the carriage and drove with them. When, however, they reached the house of Herr Corbus was not there. The mice drew the carriage into the barn, the hen flew with the cock upon a perch, the cat sat down by the hearth, the duck on the well pole. The egg rolled itself into a towel, the pin stuck itself into the chair cushion, the needle jumped onto the bed in the middle of the pillow, and the millstone laid itself over the door. Then Herr Corbus came home, went to the hearth, and was about to light the fire, when the cat threw a quantity of ashes in his face. He ran into the kitchen in a great hurry to wash it off, and the duck splashed some water in his face. He wanted to dry it with the towel, but the egg rolled up against him, broke, and glued up his eyes. He wanted to rest, and sat down in the chair, and then the pin pricked him. He fell in a passion, and threw himself on his bed, but as soon as he laid his head on the pillow, the needle pricked him, so that he screamed aloud, and was just going to run out into the wide world in his rage. But when he came to the house door, the millstone leapt down and struck him dead. Herr Corbus must have been a very wicked man. The end.
Jeez.
I love it. That's so good. Such a good story.
Would you read that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah. I do not feel like a moment of my life was wasted listening to that. That was very good.
I can think of very few better uses of that time in my life than to hear that story.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was so good.
Okay, Kit, that's your turn. What do you got?
All right. This is Lilith by Nikki Marmory. This is a very short because it's the end of the chapter, page
Oh, okay.
99. It's actually the end of the second part of the book. In a blinding flash of light, she was gone. The bees dispersed in all directions at once, their hum spreading out, rippling into the treetops, swarming over the thyme and the lavender, hovering above the wildflowers and the rustling grasses before speeding off into the great beyond. Her body remained. I buried it at the mouth of the cave, using water to soften the hard earth and sharp flint to dig a grave. I wove a wreath of aspen leaves to mark its place. I poured libation from the shepherd's wineskin. She did not need the sacrifice of blood, nor burnt offerings, those things he demanded. No threats to worship her alone, on pain of death or damnation. No shows of power or domination. She was above all that.
Okay. I feel like we might need to read the blurb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before Eve, there was Lilith. Lilith and Adam are equal and happy in the Garden of Eden, until Adam decides Lilith should submit to his will and lie beneath him. She refuses and is banished forever from paradise. Demonized and sidelined, Lilith watches in fury as God creates Eve, the woman who accepts her submission. But Lilith has a secret. She has already tasted the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Endowed with wisdom, she knows why Asherah, God's wife and equal, the queen of heaven, is missing. Lilith has a plan. She will rescue Eve, find Asherah, restore balance to the world, and regain her rightful place in paradise. Lilith's quest for justice drives her throughout history, from the ziggurats of ancient Sumer to the court of Israel's Queen Jezebel, and to the side of a radical preacher in Roman Judea. Jezebel, Mary Magdalene, Noah's wife Norea all play their part in Lilith's enlightenment. In the modern age, as he observes the catastrophic consequences of a world built on inequality, Lilith finally understands what must be done to correct the wrongs done to women and all humankind at the beginning of time. Inspired by ancient myths and suppressed scriptures, Lilith is a thought-provoking and ambitious novel with an evocative literary voice and a triumphantly engaging heroine.
That actually sounds really good.
Zach is nodding.
Yeah, it was well written. I like the concept of the story is good. I think I have to ask permission to read that on account of its blasphemy. But otherwise, I would read that. It sounds good.
This is a book that Kit has wanted me to read for some time, so I'm a little biased into saying yes, I would read that because my wife is very insistent that I read
the mounting pressure is starting.
Yeah, I'd absolutely read that book.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay, Zach, you're up. What do you got?
All right, this is my second and last book. It is What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains.
Ooh.
The Shallows by Nicholas Carr.
Okay.
And this is updated with a new afterword.
Okay.
So I think it was originally written in the early 2000s, and this the updated version came out in 2020.
So it accounts for smartphones.
Okay.
Yeah, the afterword is mostly to do with smartphones.
Okay.
Page 99.
Brain rot.
Yeah, is the beginning of chapter 6. So this will also be a short one. The chapter title is The Very Image of a Book. And what of the book itself? Of all popular media, it's probably the one that has been most resistant to the net's influence. Book publishers have suffered some losses of business as reading has shifted from the printed page to the screen, but the form of the book itself hasn't changed much. A long sequence of printed pages assembled between a pair of stiff covers has proven to be a remarkably robust technology, remaining useful and popular for more than half a millennium. It's not hard to see why books have been slow to make the leap into the digital age. There's not a whole lot of difference between a computer monitor and a television screen, and the sounds coming from speakers hit your ears in pretty much the same way, whether they're being transmitted through a computer or a radio. But as a device for reading, the book retains some compelling advantages over the computer. You can take a book to the beach without worrying about sand getting in its works. You can take it to bed without being nervous about it falling on the floor should you nod off. You can spill coffee on it. You can sit on it. You can put it down on a table, open to the page you're reading, and when you pick it up, a few days...
Okay. I would turn the page. I'd keep reading that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd keep reading that too.
Yeah.
It feels very appropriate for the podcast.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. When I got the book, I thought, oh, this is going to be all about just shitting all over the internet and like it's bad for your brain and everyone's stupider now. And it wasn't that, which I think was good. The case it really makes is just that the way you take in information determines the way you process information. And so if you spend a lot of time on the internet, whether it's for work or for pleasure, that will affect how your brain functions and processes information in and of itself. So the technology you use to gather information sort of trains your brain to work a certain way. And so it's not that like, well, reading a book is better and internet is bad. It's just that if you read books predominantly, you're going to find the internet very frustrating. If you are predominantly on the internet, you're going to find books very frustrating.
I just finished Sunrise on the Reaping. I finished it in 24 hours, and I realized that grad school changed the way I read. So now I'm reading it out loud to Ryan to force myself to like take in every detail. Yeah. Because in grad school they don't
for the pertinent stuff.
In grad school they teach you not to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like if you can't, like as you're writing for graduate publication and as you're writing for publication in academia, they want you to write and write and write and write. But if you can't summarize your research on your abstract, then you've done your job wrong. And if people can't
Yeah.
skim through your research to find your main points, then you've done your job wrong in academia. So as I've been reading fiction, I realized that grad school changed the way my brain worked.
You're looking for the main points and moving on.
Yeah.
Cool. So this book is called The Social Contract by I'm gonna butcher this name. Jean Jacques Ruiz. Rocio? No idea.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
No, I probably that would be yep.
It's a
That would
French.
be the
It's
one.
French.
It was written by Javert from Les Mis.
Yeah. Anywho, so Social Contract, very like there's no blurb on this one again because I keep buying the Great Ideas books from Penguin.
Okay.
And the back of the book is just like a list of other books in the
Someone
series to buy.
else want to read this passage?
I can read it.
Okay.
Okay. Social contract. Just start middle of the sentence?
Start middle of the sentence.
Okay. Should we be any more advanced? Moral dimensions have no precise standard of measurement. Even if we could agree about signs, how should we agree on their value? For myself, I am always astonished that people should fail to recognize so simple a sign or be so insincere as not to accept it as such. What is the object of any political association? It is the protection and the prosperity of its members. And what is the surest evidence that they are so protected and prosperous? The numbers of their population. They do not look beyond this much debated evidence. All other things being equal, the government under which, without external aids like naturalization and immigration, the citizens increase and multiply most, is infallibly the best government. That under which the people diminishes and wastes away is the worst. Statisticians, this is your problem. Count, measure, and compare. Asterisk, subscript note, which is half the page.
Oh.
One must judge, this is right after the statisticians, this is your problem, count, measure, compare. One must judge on the same principle the centuries that merit preference in respect to the prosperity of the human race. People have too much admired those that have witnessed a flourishing of crafts and letters without penetrating the secret purpose of their culture and without considering its fatal consequences. Something in Latin, idque apud imperatus humanitas vocabutur cum pars servitutis esset. Shall we never see behind the precepts of books the crude self-interest which prompts the authors to speak? No, whatever they may say, when, notwithstanding its brilliance, a country is depopulated, it is simply not true that all is going well, and it is not enough for a poet to have an income of 100,000 livres for his century to be the best of all. It is less important to consider the apparent repose and tranquility of rulers than the well-being of whole nations and, above all, the most populous states. A hailstorm may devastate a few cantons, but it rarely causes famine. Riots and civil wars may greatly alarm rulers. End of page.
End of page. I'm inclined to say yes, I would read that, but I'm a big philosophy nerd anyways. I have this podcast that I like to listen to called Philosophize This! And the guy talks about philosophy through the ages, starting from the beginning. I believe the social contract has come up. Also, Trevor Noah had a thing or two to say about the social contract that I found intriguing.
Surprisingly, I say sarcastically, Suzanne Collins referenced the social contract when she was writing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is it's now my second favorite book in the Hunger Games series. And I'm pretty sure she explicitly pulled from that page when she was writing The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because it's all about
Population increase or decrease?
population increase, decrease, like managing the governed, the human, like what is human condition, like what is our the nature versus nurture debate. That's like the big theme of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is, are we animals or are we civilized? Like, who establishes a social contract in a governed nation? And it's really like, everybody says, oh, they're just silly little books where kids fight each other to the death. But I say, but they're actually like super deep and like analyzing the government and governance structure. Like, especially this new one is really good. I'm sorry, Suzanne, I keep plugging your book. I don't need to plug your book for you. You did an amazing job, sweetie.
But if you wanted to pay her to do that.
But if you would like to give me the next chapters
Yeah.
of the next book you're working on,
That'd be cool. We'd all love that.
I'd love that.
I would definitely read it. I think that's really that's a lens I'd never considered of like, well, is the population going up or down, and not naturalization, immigration, like your native population, is that going up or is it going down? Because it's such an obvious metric now that it's been laid out to me that, well, do the members of your social order deem it good enough for their children? Because that's how population goes up, is you have kids. And it's like, well, do the people that belong to your group want to have kids? If not, why?
In South Korea, there's something called the B4 movement, where women are... So B4, here's what it stands for. No boys, no betrothal, no boinking, no babies. and it's been going on for some time. And South Korea, I can't speak to North Korea. South Korea's population has been declining for some time.
Yeah.
There was a call for a similar movement here in the States after the election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by that.
But yeah, I'd read the social contract.
If you want to know, like, hey, is your society good? Are people having kids? No?
Maybe look at that.
Then clearly they don't think it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so my next book is The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King. This is book 2 of The Dark Tower. This is my favorite of the Dark Tower books.
All right, before you read,
yes,
why book 2?
Well, let me read the blurb. That might answer the question.
All right.
Taking place mere hours following the dramatic events seen in The Gunslinger, The Drawing of the Three continues with Roland of Gilead on his solitary quest for the Dark Tower, leading him to a seemingly endless stretch of beach along the Western Sea. A terrain filled with unearthly monstrosities that mean certain death if he lets his guard down. But there are other mysteries along this desolate shoreline as well. 3 arcane doorways standing freely in the sand and cryptically designated as the Prisoner, the Lady of Shadows, and the Pusher. Each one is a portal to our world's New York City at different points in time, and each one is complete with its own set of dangers that could spell the end of Roland's journey. The world has moved on, and the tower draws ever closer. The Drawing of the Three is an odyssey that is unlike any tale Stephen King has ever written. And frankly, I agree. I can't recall ever reading another book like this one. So I'm going to flip to page 99. When Roland acted, Eddie knew all this was really happening. When he was quiet, that giddy feeling that it must be a dream, an extraordinary, vivid dream he was having as he slept on Delta 901 inbound to Kennedy, insisted on creeping back. Roland had told him he could carry the food into his own world. He had already done something similar once, he said, when Eddie was asleep. Eddie found it all but impossible to believe, but Roland assured him it was true. Well, we still have to be damned careful, Eddie said. They've got 2 customs guys watching me. Us, whatever the hell I am now. I know we have to be careful, Roland returned. There aren't 2, there are 5. Eddie suddenly felt one of the weirdest sensations of his entire life. He did not move his eyes, but felt them moved. Roland moved them. A guy in a muscle shirt talking into a telephone. A woman sitting on a bench, rooting through her purse. A young black guy who would have been spectacularly handsome except for the hair lip which surgery had only partially repaired, looking at the t-shirts in the newsstand Eddie had come from not long since. There was nothing wrong about any of them on top, but Eddie recognized them for what they were nonetheless, and it was like seeing those hidden images in a child's puzzle, which, once seen, could never be unseen. He felt dull heat in his cheeks because it had taken the other to point out what he should have seen at once. He had spotted only 2. These 3 were a little better, but not that much. The eyes of the phone man weren't blank, imagining the person he was talking to, but aware, actually looking. And the place where Eddie was, that was the place to which the phone man's eyes just That's the end of the page. Would you turn the page?
I would.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen King can be kind of hit or miss for me sometimes, and I like him as an author. It's just there are some idiosyncrasies that he includes in his writing that rub me the wrong way. Like, he writes brilliantly, but there are just some tropes in his that, you know, the way he writes women to me kind of gets under my skin.
Sure.
Yeah, the idea of like someone else moving your eyes, that would freak me the fuck out. That would be like someone chooses what you look at for a bit and you just have no control. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that would be
terrifying.
This is probably my favorite because it reads like an action movie. Whenever I pick up this book, I am captivated the whole way through. Like, I just want to keep turning the pages. And as well, it is literally him getting his party together for his quest to the Dark Tower. Like, it's just so cool.
I would read it, but I would start at number 1.
Sure. Well,
I'd start at book 1.
Well, I have news, Zach. My friend Jacques, who you've met, he and I finished covering The Gunslinger, which is the first book. And those episodes, I think, will be coming out later this year.
Yes. All right. I got to get a copy.
All right. So it's my turn now. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher.
Before she starts, cowboy smut or no? Do we think this is cowboy smut or not?
I can't participate because
You know which one is cowboy smut?
I know which one the cowboy smut is.
It's got a fix on the game.
What was the name of this again?
What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. So I will say that I have read one of T. Kingfisher's books, and it was a romance novel. It was called Paladin's Grace.
The title does not lend itself to me to cowboy themes.
No, it doesn't.
It's distinctly not. I dragged on fresh clothes. My tongue felt like it needed a shave. Angus came in, looked at me, grunted, and handed me my boots, which had been freshly polished. Don't say it, I muttered. He gripped my shoulder briefly, but didn't utter a word. I shoved my feet in the boots and went to breakfast. My hand was halfway to the knob when I heard Roderick say I heard her knocking last night. Denton said something too quietly for me to hear. On the door of the crypt, Roderick said, trying to get out. It can't have been, though, can it? She's dead. She's really dead, isn't she? Of course she is, I said, pushing the door open. Your nerves are shot, and who can blame you? I looked to Denton for confirmation. Yes, of course, he said, only nerves. Yes, said Roderick, of course. You must think me quite mad, Easton. Not at all. Nevrose de guerre. We've all got it. It'd be more extraordinary if you weren't overset. He began wringing his hands together again. His knuckles were so red that they looked as if they might start bleeding. For God's sake, leave off, man, I said wearily. You're like Lady Macbeth. Out, out, damned spot. Roderick let out a yelp like a kicked dog and stared at me with huge eyes. I immediately felt guilty. Sorry, Roderick. It's just everything. I sat back. Why don't we leave? Go to Paris. It'd be good for you. No, he cried, almost a shout. No, He swallowed, his throat bobbing. No, I can't. Not until. His voice shrank. Not yet, he whispered finally, and fled the table.
Well, I really want to know what's going on with this person, so I would turn the page.
Yeah.
I think I'd turn the page in the other direction, find out what happened prior to that.
It sounds like there's a woman in a crypt.
Yeah.
And they heard her knocking at the crypt?
It's a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher.
I was going to say, this is very House of Usher, I think.
Yeah.
It's a retelling.
Retelling of the fall of the House of Usher.
I love it when authors do that, when they rewrite books.
Man, the fall of House Usher is so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd read that.
Now that I know that, I definitely read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give that a read.
All right, so Zach, your books are done.
Is this just like...
Do you want to read Cowboy Smut?
I feel like this is just everyone going, I have a bunch of cool books, and everyone going, I'd read that book. Like, I think I'm the only person that said no to reading one of the books.
No. Kit and I both got shot down. Nobody wants to read about 1491. And I think we were all pretty solidly no on Dracula until we knew it was Dracula.
Yeah, we were all pretty.
Yeah,
like nah. And then she was like Dracula, and I'm like, I changed my vote. I like Dracula.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zach, you're out. Jake, you're out. I've got a couple.
No, I've got one more.
You have one more.
Jake's got one more.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I got one more.
I'm sorry. Great.
Perfect.
Jake, send me the page to that one.
So this is a book that I've just started reading, actually.
It's
I like it a lot.
Book.
Yeah, so it's called The Decay of Lying. It's kind of about like how lying in storytelling makes it interesting.
Okay.
So it's kind of like an encouragement of lying in a weird way for like the creation of kind of like art,
Okay.
which is kind of cool.
Okay.
Just lies make art more interesting, I think, is the point that they're getting at. And how the more people try to create art about kind of like things that have happened to them in an honest way, it's kind of like making art more stale. I haven't made it too far in, so I can't actually say
Zach's
exactly
gonna
what it's
read it.
about.
Have you made it to page 99, or is this going to be new for you?
No, this is spoilers for me, but I'm
Well. You will also get to vote if you would read this book then.
yeah.
By page 99, you'll be like, that's not where I thought it was going. This sucks now.
Yeah.
And is this by Oscar Wilde?
Yeah.
Okay, it said Oscar Wilde at the top of the page, so all right. I like Oscar Wilde. Self-sacrifice. That's the end of the first sentence. It takes a thoroughly grasping age, such as that in which we live, to set above the fine intellectual virtues those shallow and emotional virtues that are an immediate practical benefit to itself. They miss their aim, too, these philanthropists and sentimentalists of our day, who are always chattering to one about one's duty to one's neighbor, for the development of the race depends on the development of the individual, and where self-culture has ceased to be the ideal, the intellectual standard is instantly lowered, and often ultimately lost. If you meet at dinner a man who has spent his life in educating himself, a rare type in our time, I admit, but still one occasionally to be met with, you rise from table richer, and conscious that a high ideal has for a moment touched and sanctified your days. But oh, my dear Ernest, to sit next to a man who has spent his life in trying to educate others, what a dreadful experience that is. How appalling is that ignorance which is the inevitable result of the fatal habit of imparting opinions. How limited in range the creature's mind proves to be. How it wearies us, and must weary himself, with its endless repetitions and sickly reiteration. How lacking it is in any element of intellectual growth. In what a vicious cycle it always moves. Ernest, you speak with strange feeling, Gilbert. Have you had this dreadful experience, as you call it, lately? Gilbert, few of us escape it. People say that the schoolmaster is abroad. I wish to goodness he were, but the type of which, after all, he is only one, and certainly the least important of the representatives, seems to me to be really dominating our lives. And just as the philanthropist is the nuisance of the ethical sphere, so the nuisance of the intellectual sphere is the man who is so occupied in trying to...
I would turn that page, and I'll tell you why, specifically. Because there's a character called Ernest. And so it really makes me wonder, because Wilde has a tendency to reference characters from other plays that he writes. And so it really makes me wonder if this Ernest is actually Jack from The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yeah, maybe he's not... Well, if it's in a book about how lying makes art better.
I really want to know if that's Jack.
To make Ernest actually not Ernest.
Yeah.
It's very meta.
Yeah.
It's very Oscar Wilde.
Very Oscar Wilde. I'd turn a page for Oscar Wilde because that's my homeboy.
I would read. I would. I think even like that was just a really well written page, but the concept in general of like how deceit and withholding information makes art better is really good. But to the point that the characters were making, even just on that page, about how meeting with someone that's trying to make themselves better is always refreshing, and you walk away like, wow, that's really nice. But meeting with someone who's trying to make you better, you always leave like, man, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Who are you?
It's interesting though. Like kind of like a counter idea to that is the idea that in PhD study, a large part of what's kind of like suggested to do or required to do is like teaching. Because the idea is that if you can impart the knowledge of the thing that you're studying and learning, you actually ingrain it more in kind of like your understanding of that thing. Right. So I think that if it's someone showing and sharing what they are currently learning, that can be refreshing. Whereas if it's someone in the repetition of trying to show what they know, then that is just fucking boring.
Yeah.
I think that you raise a good point there. Yeah. Because when someone is trying to tell you something that they are fully convinced of, there's always a part of you that wants to resist a little bit. But, like, if you're just like, I mean, I don't know, this is just what I'm reading about, then there's a little bit of a okay, well, we're learning together a little bit. You're telling me about what you're learning about.
Yeah.
I think part of it comes down to interest on the recipient's part too. Like if I ask you to tell me something,
That's one thing.
I want it, like, and that's the guy who's getting his PhD at college. If I'm taking his course, at least in some level, I assented to this course.
Yeah.
To the character's kind of point about the schoolmaster is, I didn't want to do 5th grade math. So when he's up here and he's like, you're going to learn your fractions. It's like, I have zero
don't
interest in
want to learn
fractions.
fractions.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my third and final book. I have another book that I know Julia would want us to read, but this is my third pick.
Okay.
It's called Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Burton. So I'm going to flip to page 99. And why are they here? I asked, gesturing to the blinking mole and the pasty-faced possum. Same reason he's here, said the possum, yawning to expose a row of crooked needle teeth. The one searched for sent word about you. You're the half-and-half bird with a porpoise. Purpose, you common conehead, cheeped the junco. The possum ignored him. You're the one who keeps. We're here to answer whatever you need answering. Help wherever we can. A swell of pride rose in me. When had anyone ever seen a mole and a possum and a junco meet up, apart from in an unsavory joke? I was beginning to think that there was some sort of actual camaraderie between furred and feathered that I had overlooked before. A sort of basic respect, a communal back-scratching. The idea excited me. He added, also, some crows told us if we didn't come, they'd pluck out our eyes. I chose to ignore the additional intel. The mole shuffled around the patch of grass, sifting the soil with those pink hands. I wished they were a little larger so they could be of use. What are you half and half of? He asked, dick nose waving in the air. The mole was funny with his little mofo fingers. I had an undeniable urge to put a top hat on him. I'm just who I am, I told him with some urgency. Dennis, tell me what you know. The mole and the junco started at the same time, interrupting one another. I'll go first, said the junco, heads darting. No, me, said the mole, shuffling in place. One at a time, I said, looking up to the sky for signs of the ruby-crowned kinglet. Possum, you go first. The dark-eyed junco muttered rapid-fire expletives. I'd already picked my favorite of the three. I'm not sure why everyone hates possums so much. They may look like someone shaved the... Would you turn the page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've read
Those
Hollow
descriptions are so good. All
I-
of those descriptions.
Yeah.
I love it.
I've read Hollow Kingdom because there was a moment in time where I was like super into post-apocalyptic fiction. I still am, but that was such a breath of fresh air from most post-apocalyptic fiction, which is
I should read the blurb.
it's incredibly as a genre depressing.
Yeah.
So that
I
was a
would
very
not have gathered from that page post-apocalyptic.
So
Yeah.
let me read the blurb for a little context to what Kit's saying. ST, a domesticated crow, is a bird of simple pleasures. He spends his days hanging out with his owner, Big Jim, trading insults with Seattle's wild crows, i.e. those idiots, and enjoying the finest food humankind has to offer, Cheetos. Copyright. Then, Big Jim's eyeball falls out of his head, and ST starts to think something's not quite right. His tried-and-true remedies, such as beak-delivering beer and an inventive cocktail of stolen pharmaceuticals, fail to cure Big Jim's debilitating malady. Suddenly, ST is left with no choice but to abandon his old life and venture out into the wild and frightening world of Seattle with Big Jim's loyal but dim-witted dog, Dennis. To his shock and horror, he finds Big Jim's neighbors literally devouring one another. Local wildlife is abuzz with rumors of Seattle's dangerous new predators. Humanity's extinction has seemingly arrived, and the only one determined to save it is a cowardly crow whose only knowledge of the world comes from TV. What could possibly go wrong?
I absolutely love that.
I
would
love
definitely
this
read
book.
that.
The idea
That's
of a
so
zombie apocalypse from a crow's point of view, a domesticated crow, no less. Like, the book has a whole bunch to say about animals, like domesticated versus wildlife versus, in a zoo, and it's all under this backdrop of humans that are now zombies.
In an ironic twist of destiny, Mary and I were arguing this morning about getting a pet crow.
Really?
It turns out that is illegal. Ravens and crows you are not allowed to own those in the United States because of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act.
Oh.
And which is to say you cannot own a native raven. I guess there are non-native varieties of raven that you could own.
That you wouldn't want to migrate.
Right.
Okay. All right. What do you got, Kit?
This is Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu.
That does not sound like an author who would write cowboy smut.
Nah.
Could be
for
Cajun,
posterity's
though. Maybe.
For austerity's purpose, I'll tell you the title of the cowboy smut, but I have rescinded it because there were 5 mentions of the word cock on page 99. And I got a little bit self-conscious about saying cock 5 times.
I don't know.
But the title
One
of
of
it
them
is
was
Done and
like
Dusted by
Rooster,
Lila
though.
Sage. It's a 3-trilogy book. Highly recommend. It's great if you're into cowboy
Is this the first in the
smut.
trilogy?
No. I have rescinded the cowboy smut.
Oh.
This is Carmilla by
okay.
Sheridan Le Fanu. Unripe fruit or doing any of the 50 foolish things to which young people are supposed to be prone. That's the end of the sentence from page 98. About half an hour after my father came in, he had a letter in his hand and said, "This letter had been delayed. It is from General Spielsdorf. He might have been here yesterday, but he may not come till tomorrow, or he may be here today." He put the open letter into my hand, but he did not look pleased, as he used to when a guest, especially one so much loved as the general, was coming. On the contrary, he looked as if he wished him at the bottom of the Red Sea. There was plainly something on his mind which he did not choose to divulge. "Papa, darling, will you tell me this?" said I, suddenly laying my hand on his arm and looking, I am sure, imploringly in his face. "Perhaps," he answered, smoothing my hair caressingly over my eyes. "Does the doctor think me very ill?" "No, dear. He thinks if right steps are taken, you will be quite well again, at least on the high road to a complete recovery in a day or 2, he answered a little dryly. "I wish our good friend the general had chosen any other time. That is, I wish you had been perfectly well to receive him."
So, I don't know if that's a good excerpt from that book. I will say, for Jake and the audience, this is a very evocative looking book. It's all black and red. It's like the silhouette of a woman with long hair, and the pages themselves are red.
Yeah.
So, based
Interesting.
on just page 99, my answer is no, but I would like to hear the blurb.
Predating Dracula by 26 years, Carmilla is the original vampire.
Oh, no.
Carmilla is the original vampire
And now we
story.
all read it. And that's-
Steeped in sexual tension and gothic romance. In a lonely castle deep in the forest, Laura leads a solitary life with only her ailing father for company, until one moonlit night a carriage arrives bearing an unexpected guest, the beautiful Carmilla. So begins a feverish friendship between Laura and her mysterious companion, but as Carmilla becomes increasingly strange and volatile, Laura finds herself tormented by nightmares and growing weaker by the day. The subline on the cover of the book is the dark sapphic romance that inspired Dracula.
Okay. So this is an old book then?
This is old. Yes, this came out 26 years before Bram Stoker wrote Dracula.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
Carmilla was first, and then we got Dracula.
Wow. Okay. I did not know that.
There's a theme to a lot of the
So
books.
that book
I
was
brought.
written, and then Bram Stoker was like, "What if it wasn't sexy?"
Bram Stoker said, "What if I made it as dry as hell?"
Okay, so I've got...
What if it was actually an investigative series into a dusty old man?
Wait, hold on. So what's everybody's final answer to that book?
I would read that. Yeah.
yeah, probably read that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd read that. So I'm going to now pull out Julia's pick. Julia didn't actually pick this, but I know that
You
she
picked
would.
it for her.
I know that she would because she wants to read it with me on this podcast.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
A Court of Thorns and Roses
Ah.
by Sarah J. Maas. I'm gonna flip the page.
I have heard this is also fairly smutty.
This is Fae smut.
Ooh.
Yeah, different from cowboy smut.
So let's go to page 99.
Oh God.
I don't even
I'm trying
know.
to remember.
I don't even know if Kit got to page 99.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
All right, so we're on page 99, and I've not read this page, by the way.
Okay.
We neared the sweeping stairs that led into the manor, and I finally asked, Lucian goes on border patrol, and you've mentioned other sentries, yet I've never seen one here. Where are they all? At the border, he said, as if that were a suitable answer. Then he added, we don't need sentries if I'm here, because he was deadly enough. I tried not to think about it, but still I asked, were you trained as a warrior then? Yes. When I didn't reply, he added, I spent most of my life in my father's war band on the borders, training as a warrior to one day serve him, or others. Running these lands was not supposed to fall to me. The flatness with which he said it told me enough about how he felt about his current title, about why the presence of his silver-tongued friend was necessary. But it was too personal, too demanding to ask what had occurred to change his circumstances so greatly. So I cleared my throat and said, what manner of fairies prowl the woods beyond this gate, if the bog isn't the worst of them? What was that thing? What I'd meant to ask was, what would have tormented and then eaten me? Who were you to be so powerful that they pose no threat to you? He paused on the bottom step, waiting for me to catch up. A puka. They use your own desires to lure you to some remote place, then they eat you, slowly. It probably smelled your human scent in the woods and followed it to the house. I shivered and didn't bother to hide it. Tamlin went on. These lands used to be well guarded. The deadlier fairies were contained within the borders of their native territories, monitored by the local Fae lords, or driven into hiding. Creatures like the puka never would have dared to set foot here, but now the sickness that infected Perithian has weakened the wards that kept them out. A long pause, like the words were choked out of him. Things are different now. It's not safe to travel alone at night, especially if you're human. Because humans were defenseless as babes compared to natural-born... That's the end of the page. Would you turn the page?
No. No, I would not. I am a proud smut enjoyer. I despise the Court of Thorns and Roses series.
Really?
I cannot stand that book series.
Did you even finish this book?
I didn't even get to page 99 because I found the main character so insufferable.
How
Okay.
so? Well,
Okay.
what is what is
so
it
Sarah
about
J.
it
Maas,
that's
she wrote the main character to where she's like, I can't read and that's fine. And her main character rubs me the wrong way. And there's just a lot of very problematic elements within the book itself, regarding like how women are actually treated and how the fandom interacts with these characters. And there's just, it's a lot. It's a lot. Like, I really tried to give it a good college shot because I got excited when they were releasing new books and I was like, oh, I should read it. And then I tried, like, I tried for weeks to just get past it. I couldn't get past page, like, 30 because
Wow.
I could not
Jeez.
stand her main point of view character.
Hmm.
Because she just gave me very not like other girls vibes, which is my least
Pick me
favorite
girl.
trope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pick me girl, which is my least favorite trope because like it's so pervasive and it's something that at least I have noticed a lot of female writers have tried to overcome. So when other female writers embrace that trope and like use it in earnest, it just rubs me the wrong way because I'm like, you're writing for women. Men aren't out here reading this book. And if they are, like, kudos to them for picking up a book like that, like, and expanding their horizons. But you're writing for women. So when you make your character's single sole personality is I'm not like other girls, what else is there to interest me as a reader in your character?
Yeah.
So
I see that.
So before Kit gave her answer, what was your answers, guys?
I was going to, and I would still say yes. not being a woman means that I don't find any particular distaste with the pic. Like, it's annoying. I'd probably be like, yeah, she's kind of aggravating.
Yeah.
But I don't read a book, especially a fantasy book, just like super into like, what are the characters' motivations and how are they? I'm like, where does the killing start? Like, I want to know. Like, what interested me about that page was not like, what's this possible relationship between this human woman and this guy who doesn't seem like he's human? What's that going to be like? My interest was, the fuck is a puka?
Yeah, same.
I want to know what that
Yeah,
is.
I do
Yeah,
too.
me
These
too.
lands are
Me too.
dangerous now? What happened? He wasn't supposed to rule. That means his dad and the presumed heir are dead. What happened to those guys? I want to know. There was a massacre, and I want to know about it. So if the girl's annoying, I'm like, yeah, I'll deal with that so I can learn this other stuff.
Tell me about the
That's what
puka.
I want.
Yeah.
I want tell her so I can know about this puka thing.
All right, Jake, what did you think?
I mean, I feel like that page managed to dodge smut either side of it. Do you get what I mean? Like, it was
Yeah,
very
it
much
threaded the
in
needle.
the middle. It's
I
like,
get the impression the puka like was luring her in some kind of sexual way,
Yeah.
like using her own feelings of arousal against her. Is my guess.
My last book is The Final Girl Support Group, a novel by Grady Hendrix. And it throughout this book, he has little
a
newspaper
fairly
clip articles that
meta
he wrote
title.
himself, very meta.
Oh, is page 99 one of those?
Page 99 is one of the
Meta articles.
meta articles.
Okay.
And it is titled The American Dream Girl's Nightmare Life by Rusty Squires III, The Believer, August 2008.
Okay.
Unless they're David Foster Wallace, no one wants to be the reporter to be part of his story. But the first step to understanding the crazy, mixed-up world of Heather DeLuca is to understand how she turned arranging this interview into a piece of performance art. Contacted via Facebook, her opening act was to unleash a mind-boggling 46 messages during which she, A, promised to reveal never-before-told details of her story, and B, assured this reporter she had physical evidence that would overturn the conviction of Rudolph Kring, the man currently serving 6 consecutive life sentences for the Dream King killings. C, offered to be the subject of a photo shoot at the now-closed elementary school that served as Kring's home/torture dungeon, and D, demanded $47,832 for all of the above. The conversation continued via text message, fax machine, and telephone, and throughout that process, Miss DeLuca kept lowering her fee until we arrived at the following exclusive interview. Final price, $450. So if you, the reader, find the ensuing kamikaze assault on common sense, spiked with squalid nonsense, demonstrably false claims, and tasteless conspiracy theories disturbing, upsetting, or just downright grotesque, please remember you're getting Miss DeLuca at a $47,382 discount. Even then, you might feel like the price is too high.
I love the phrase kamikaze on common sense. That's fun to say.
yeah.
It's good alliteration.
I would read that book.
I would read it. I will say
think
I
so,
was
too.
sold at the title.
The Final Girl Support Group?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm not like real big into theater or creative writing or any of that stuff. So the term final girl is new to me.
So
I
that's
did
not
not
a
know.
theatrical term. Kit.
Hi. So when I go for my dissertation, there's a lot of different things that I'm looking at doing, but one of the things I am looking at doing my dissertation on is the trope of women in horror and looking at how women serve roles in horror. And so the final girl is a trope that comes from slasher movies specifically in horror, and it's the final girl alive at the end of the movie. And she often fills these different traits, like she's virginous, she's smart, she's mousy, like as in she's like brunette, she's a little bit shyer than the other girls. And she uses her surroundings to help her to an advantage. She's the one who lives at the end of the horror movie. There's been a lot of books written about the role women serve in horror, and it's starting to change now. After the Me Too movement, we've gotten the good for her genre, which I wrote like a 22-page paper in grad school about the good for her trope and how it connects to our theatrical origins starting in ancient Greece.
I've read it.
So, Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It's sitting. So Mary has a section of our library shelves sectioned off for like feminist literature, and it's sitting up there. It's like right next to Germaine Greer and what was it, Virginia Woolf, and a bunch like. So there's just like all these books, and then there's your little essay like slid in there.
Kit, you may not remember this, but I asked you for a copy of it.
Yeah.
And gave it to Zach because I was telling him about it.
Yeah, Mary and I read it. It was good. I
love
like that there's an academic paper that just has memes in it. I was like, this is my kind of academy. This is good.
Yeah.
I want to read it.
All right, I'll share it with you, Jay.
Okay.
Send it to me. I want to be involved.
It was good
Kit,
because I also like
actually-
mythology, and it goes back to like sirens and harpies, and I'm like, yes, this is the shit I know.
So, Kit, actually, with your permission, I'll include a copy of it in the link dump for the audience.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Ooh, now
yeah.
she's published.
When I
Yeah.
go for my dissertation, I think that might be like what I expand on is the history of how feminine rage has been performed or diminished in our performance culture. Because you got to keep in mind when we first started performing, at least in Greek culture, in Sanskrit theater, they allowed women to perform. So women not being allowed to perform in theater is strictly a Western culture thing. But in Greek theater, when you talk about plays like Medea and you talk about plays like Titus Andronicus or any Shakespeare play, those parts were played by men. So when you look at angry women in these plays, you got to keep in mind, women aren't even getting to perform their rage. It's being performed by men, which then immediately changes the context of the rage that's written. And so now we have this new genre called the good for her genre, which is really shot off. And we're actually seeing, for the first time in a very long time, women getting to perform their own rage. Demi Moore was nominated for an Oscar for The Substance, which is all about like an aging woman dealing with the fact that she's aging and feeling rage at the fact that people don't take her seriously anymore because she's aging. And it was like a super powerful movie, very body horror, very Cronenberg, but it's so good. It's so good. Demi Moore gives the performance of a lifetime in that movie. It is so good. Final Girl Support Group is one of my favorite nonfiction, not nonfiction, one of my favorite fiction books because it takes the movies that we're all familiar with and changes them just enough and then puts it in our world. And it's really good. Like Grady Hendrix is one of my favorite horror writers, and I think he's one of the only horror writers that's a man that I'm like, okay, I'm fine with you writing women. Like Stephen King doesn't even get that privilege for me.
Yeah.
The only Stephen King books that I like where he focuses on female point of views are Carrie, and even then it's a little iffy, and Dolores Claiborne.
I will say, Kit, to give you interest in listening to the Gunslinger episodes, Jacques and I do criticize the way King writes women quite a lot in that book. I mean, in those episodes.
Sounds like there's a lot of criticism
to
to be had here.
That was also something that came up a lot when we were reading.
When we were talking about 14.
Yeah.
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 What book were you guys reading?
So we're currently reading 14. Those are the episodes that are coming out right now. So 14, it's about this guy, Nate, who is looking for an apartment, and he finds one that's unusually cheap. Like, it's near Hollywood, and accounting for inflation, it's less than our mortgage. Yeah. Kit gave me a look like, oh. Well, so he moves into this apartment building, and weird stuff starts to happen.
One of the things in that book that was really aggravating me consistently was there's so many characters in that book, and none of them have any depth. And all of them are just like the one note that they are introduced as, and then it doesn't change. Including the main character. It's
the
like
most prominent examples that stood out to Jake were the women and how they were written.
Yeah, true. It's like they establish one of the girls in the book, I've forgotten her name, as like super intelligent. Veek, yeah. So they establish Veek as like really, really smart, and then proceed to just make her dumber than all of the guys, despite this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the she's like literally the intelligent one. Like that was like the whole
So
thing.
it's not even that they're one note and that's all they are. It's they're one note and then they don't even get to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally
Well,
it
at
was.
least with Veek in particular.
Yeah.
There's another woman, Zila, who is just very sexual, open with her body. Like the first time you see her, it's because Nate goes onto the sunroof and she is tanning topless.
Yeah.
And she's got like blue hair and blue eyebrows. And her whole character is sex jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So like this is the slut girl.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
she
was
only
pretty much
it's
that.
minor spoilers. She only ever sleeps with one guy in the book, but that is how she is written.
Well, that really just fills back
Yeah.
into those. So like they're one note, but they don't even get to be that.
Mhm.
So like we're gonna make you sound like a slut, and that's either gonna rub people the wrong way or they're gonna really like it. But they're both gonna be disappointed. No one gets to be
That's so
happy
good.
with your character.
Damn.
Multiple traits for a person? What is this?
Boo.
You want multiple traits for a person? Go read Divergent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's-
That's
go
a book
outside
series
for
that
that.
rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a few episodes of The Gunslinger coming out. That'll be 3 episodes. I
Whoop, whoop.
intend to read All Systems Red with Caitlin soon.
Ooh.
That is book 1. Well, I say book 1. Novella 1. It's a short story of the Murderbot Diaries. Very fun. I am very soon going to start covering the Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde with my hairstylist from the play I was just in, The Importance of Being Earnest. Her name is Jackie. And she was very insistent that more classics need to be on this podcast. So she suggested a bunch of classics to me, one of them being Jane Eyre. The woman has 7 copies of Jane Eyre, Zach.
My wife is currently reading that book.
She makes your 3 copies of Beowulf look shameful.
In my defense, 7 is excessive
Yes.
for a novel written in the language you speak. There's no translational difference here. It's just 7 of the exact same book. I have 3 different translations of Beowulf.
Different covers.
That's 3 different stories, basically.
So I suggested we should read a classic that she hasn't read. So we're going to start reading The Picture of Dorian Gray. And I'm actually really excited to read it because I realized that there's an uncensored version of the book, like the version that he originally wrote.
Mhm.
So I have a copy of that. And I've borrowed a copy of the popularly publicized one from the high school that I work at, from their library. So I'm going to, as I'm reading, be comparing the books because the way the story is originally written, it's one of the original gay romances. But it was heavily censored because here's the thing, right? Like the uncensored book gets into this. Did you know that the word for homosexual, that word was not coined until 1892?
I did not know that.
So this book was
I didn't
published
know.
in 1890.
Mhm.
So a lot of the book is from what I'm led to believe, because I've only read chapter 1 so far, right? So in chapter 1, there's this guy Basil and this guy Lord Henry. Basil is friends with Dorian Gray, and he's a painter and paints him all the time. And he's talking to his friend Lord Henry, who he calls Harry. He's talking to Harry about Dorian Gray and about this painting that he made of Dorian recently that he can't show anyone. And Harry's confused. He's like, why? And so he says a lot to basically, in my mind, he says a lot of words that amounts to, I have painted a very gay painting that I can't show anyone because I am secretly very gay.
Yeah.
Mood.
I was going to say can't relate, but you know.
I just love when women.
And so I just find it very fascinating, and we're going to start covering that soon.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mary was a big fan of The Picture of Dorian Gray. I have not read it. She's really into those, like, they're fictional classics, but I prefer like fantasy or sci-fi or like if my book resembles real life too much, I find it not that engaging
Yeah.
because I live real life.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, want to read a book about like women struggling with relationships? It's like, I'm married. I know this story. I don't need that. But if they're like, what about a king conquering a new kingdoms? I haven't lived that. That sounds interesting to me.
Right.
But yeah, she's real. And we've got all that, you know, Wuthering Heights and a lot of the Brontes books. We've got a ton of those.
Something else that the audience can look forward to is the 6th story in Le Morte Arthur. That's the story of Lancelot.
Yeah, we're finally getting to Lancelot.
Yeah.
Aren't you also doing Dresden Files soon?
Yes, I am.
Finally.
On April 12th, I am going to start recording the first book of the Dresden Files with Caitlin, Aaron, and James.
Fun.
So Aaron and I are very familiar with the series. So I have told Aaron, your job is to talk about what other people were speculating online, like in Dresden Files fan
that's
groups.
Cool. Yeah.
Like, I want you to find stuff that people have said when they were reading through the
What
books.
was the hot goss at the time?
At the time, yes. And I've told both Caitlin and James, who have not read the series, that their jobs is to determine who done it. I've also given them additional jobs. Caitlin's job is going to be to keep a tally of every time that Dresden is a misogynist or a jackass.
Nice.
Does she have multiple notebooks?
The book is covered in tabs.
And I've told James that his job is to keep track of like all of the spells and magic that are used in those books.
Nice.
All right. Well, is there anything anyone would like to say before we wrap up?
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, that is.
That's the age of a small child.
I remember when you first told me that you were going to be doing the podcast.
Yeah.
I was like, that's dumb. No, I'm joking.
He was like, that'll never last.
No, Jake, I remember you were very excited about the idea of me covering the Dresden Files, which, see, that's the thing, right? That was the onus of this podcast.
I was going to say, I'm excited you're finally getting into it because that's the book that started the idea.
Yes, I wanted to cover the Dresden Files, but I just couldn't, I just never got around to it. And, like, I think part of it was, like, I was having trouble getting people that were interested in co-hosting with me. And so whenever anyone did show interest, I would always be like, well, what do you want to read?
Yeah.
Right? And so I've done that enough.
Yeah. Now it's what I want.
Yeah.
What I want.
Everything's coming up, Ryan. Little musical theater humor.
Now, that said, I don't know when those episodes are going to come out, but I am recording them. I am going to be recording them starting on the 12th.
I'm like 4 books into the Dresden Files now, so.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
I will also mention that I'm going to be doing something a little special with the Dresden Files. When the new book comes out, Aaron and I are going to block some time out when it comes out to start reading it and talking about it immediately. And so that's something to look forward to this year.
Cool.
That'll be cool.
Very nice.
Cool beans.
Well, I appreciate the invite to this podcast and to read a book with you in the first place. That was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk about another book some other time soon.
Yes, I'm very down. It'll be very fun.
I have a few books that I think you would like.
Oh, I know. You tell me all about them. Which one in particular would you like to read next? Because you always suggest one, but which one specifically?
I think Lilith or the Song of Achilles are one of the Greek myths that I've been reading. Like, Song of Achilles is really good. There's a new translation of the Odyssey that came out that was done by a woman, which all of the established classic scholars are like, meh, 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 you made it too feminist. And I'm like, did she? Did she? There's a few different ones that Circe is good. Clytemnestra is very good. There's lots of different ones. There's one about the women of Troy after the Trojan War. That's pretty good.
All right.
That lady needs to do a translation of Hesiod's Theogony because there's some shit in there that's...
Now, Zach, you and I are pretty much just covering Le Morte Arthur at this point.
Yeah, we got to get through that. I'm torn on after that, though, do we continue the sort of Arthurian line and then go to like the Once and Future King or a Yankee
In King Arthur's
in
court.
King Arthur's court?
Ooh.
Or do we
Love
move
a
on to something else?
Yankee.
Like, look, we've been on Arthur for fucking ever.
Right. No, so I've done the math, Zach. If we keep going at the trajectory that we're at with La Morte Arthur, it's gonna take like 10 years for us to
Oh my
finish.
God.
Jesus Christ.
So-
Jesus.
Just something to keep in mind. If
Yeah,
you want to
yeah,
break
yeah.
it up with
I
something else
know,
at some
right.
point,
Yeah.
that's like I'm
I
open to
was
suggestions.
thinking when I was trying to think of books to bring, and I told myself like, no more fiction. I keep doing fiction. Tarzan.
Tarzan.
I love Tarzan. And it's short. It's not real long.
A book that I would actually be tempted to, I don't know if this is on your list to do with anyone, but I've heard quite a lot about it. Is Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'd actually like to start that series.
Yes.
Ryan got so excited.
Yes.
His eyes lit up with the fires of Mordor when you said that.
Jake, I will absolutely read this series with you. I love this series.
Okay,
I
cool.
binged through it in a month when I discovered it. It's the best series ever.
Okay,
That's
cool.
hyperbole, but it's really good. So yes, we should absolutely do that sometime soon.
At some point, work in some more
Amazing.
Discworld stuff.
Yeah.
After
Oh,
we read
yes.
Hogfather, and I was like, this is really good. I got a notification from Google Books, because I still use that,
Yeah.
that a lot of Terry Pratchett stuff was on sale. And so I just looked up. I was like, let me get the rest of the Death series. I didn't buy Hogfather, because I already have that one. Thank you. For like 82 cents each.
Yeah.
They were insane. I read all those. So good. Very funny. And then I remembered you talked about Guards.
Guards is a good one.
And so I went and looked up all of the Night's Watch series, and I bought all of those. And
Okay.
I'm currently in the second book.
Cool.
I'm at Men at Arms.
Men at Arms. Okay.
So
Cool.
they're very fun. I love Terry Pratchett's writing
Yeah, he's
style.
really
It's
good.
so funny.
Yeah, Terry
Exactly.
Pratchett.
The way
Forty
he's
Days
written,
books.
the way he wrote death in his books,
So
I think
good.
is the
Yeah.
best
That
iteration
is also
of
where I
death.
got Quoth the Raven. That is the Raven's
Yeah.
name. Who
Yeah.
is
The Death
Death
of
of
Rats
Rats
is probably my
Mount.
favorite character in all of literature. I love the Death of Rats
I
so
love
much.
the way that you narrate the Death of Rats.
Squeak.
Oh man!
So,
But you were right. I love Corporal Carrot or Lance Constable Carrot.
Yeah,
When he
Carrot's-
joins the
Carrot's
guards.
Great. I'm glad that you like Carrot.
He's
That's
so
great.
funny.
I think we should read The Hunger Games on your podcast just because it's my favorite book series.
Uh-huh.
I would wager like it's 5 books long now, and it's not just silly YA. It is so much more than that.
So I'm for that. However, I would like to have a third person on
Yeah.
that has not read those books.
Okay.
Mm.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who hasn't read them?
I don't know. You'll have to mull that one over.
That's a tough one.
I'm,
That's
gonna
I'm
be a
really
younger
sorry to
person.
interrupt, guys, but I kind of have to go quite soon.
Yeah,
I
we
understand,
all
Jake.
have to go.
We're wrapping up. We're gonna go.
Okay, cool.
Thank you all for listening. We love you, and we hope there will be more of you next year.
Yeah.
That's right.
Maybe if we get 50
Oh, yeah.
Patreons, I can convince him to read Cowboy Smut.
Yeah. Okay. Patreon goal. We gotta get 50 patrons, and I'll read Cowboy Smut.
And he'll like it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
What's the outro music, by the way? Is it me? Is it actually?